Home canned foods is a thing of the past, right? Whenever you might think about home canned foods, you might think about your grandmother or your great grandmother during the Depression and them having to rely on home canned foods. Or you might think about that scary word, botulism. I'm here to tell you that home canning can be easy, it can be rewarding, and it can be very convenient. Home canning can provide shelf-stable foods, and they can be easy to prepare using the right equipment. They can be shelf-stable for a long period of time, and they can be made from wholesome foods without the fear of botulism. I'm going to speak to you today about the basic equipment that you need for home canning, as well as how to prevent botulism and how to preserve your food in the optimal conditions. Firstly, we're going to speak about the equipment. Um, I want to talk about three things today. The first thing is the canning jar. This is a mason jar. In America, they're made by the Ball Canning Company or the Kerr Canning Company. This is a specialized jar that should be used for home canning. It has a little thread that goes down the side of the jar, and this helps it to sustain high temperatures. The second thing that you need with the canning jar is the lid. The lid actually has a rubberized gasket that goes around the perimeter of the jar, and this is going to allow your food to hermetically seal. Finally, you have the ring. You attach the ring after you've loaded your jar with food, and that keeps your lid seated on the jar. You might be wondering how the whole home canning process works. Well, I have information from the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. It says when jars are processed, the lid gasket softens and food and it flows slightly to cover the jar sealing surface. It also allows air to escape from the tight seal as the jar cools. Basically, what happens is the gasket is going to soften during the hot process in the canner, and it's going to kind of melt around the lip of the jar. When you take the jar out to cool, the hermetic seal is going to form, and your jar will be void of oxygen and it will be shelf stable. The second item that I want to speak to you about today is the water bath canner. The water bath canner is used specifically for high acid foods. These foods include things like pickles or home canned tomatoes or tomato sauce, or things like jams and jellies or fruits. You are able to use a water bath canner for these items because any type of bacteria that may be in your food from the handling of it, the bacteria will be killed because the water bath canner will reach 212 degrees, which is the boiling point, and also the acidic environment in these types of foods will prevent any type of spores, bacteria spores, from growing. Finally, I want to speak about the pressure canner. Pressure canner is used for low acid foods. These foods include things like meat products, which would include maybe home canned chili, or vegetables, which would include things like sweet potatoes. I canned these sweet potatoes about 1 week ago, and I needed to use a pressure canner for it because of the fact that foods like this have a very low acidic environment at the time. The pressure canner is a device that is a pressurized environment, and it allows the temperatures to get from 240 to 250 degrees, as opposed to the water bath canner that only allows the temperature to get up to 212 degrees. this environment will kill any bacteria spores that are present. Thus, it's needed for foods that are low in acid. On that note, I wanted to speak about botulism. Botulism can be very misunderstood sometimes. Botulism is a bacteria, and as I was explaining in the previous section, it's something that has spores that can be dormant at the time, and they can break out if the correct conditions present themselves. The reason why home canning and botulism are synonymous with one another is because botulism lends itself to home canning very easily. Botulism is actually something that is found all over the place, mostly in dirt and soil. When you think about things like potatoes and onions and things, any kind of dirt that may be cross-contaminating itself while you are doing the home canning process, you have botulism present in your food. Okay? The reason why botulism can grow is because botulism is something that has to do with low oxygen. During the canning process, your goal is to heat the food to a certain degree to kill bacteria, and also to seal the jar and take out any oxygen that is in the jar. Because botulism thrives in low oxygen environments, this is exactly what is needed to have this botulism go crazy. The reason why you use a water bath canner or a pressure canner is to kill any type of botulism that may have been transferred during the canning process. I wanted to read to you a statistic on botulism and how prevalent it is. Many people feel that it happens every day and that people are killed by, home canned foods all the time. Well, in the United States, on average, 110 cases of botulism are reported each year. Okay? Of those, nearly 25% of cases are foodborne. So what that's telling me is that only 27 to 28 cases of botulism are foodborne cases each year, and that was from medicine. Things that you can do to prevent botulism is to use clean equipment. You want to sterilize your jars before you use them. You want to sterilize your lids, your rings, as well as anything that's going to be coming into contact with the food, such as a ladle or a funnel that you use to transfer the food into these jars. Another reason why I like to store these with the lid off is if botulism for some reason did not get killed during the canning process, it's going to start to emit a gas, and that gas will actually blow this lid off of your jar. So if you go to reach for a jar that does have botulism in it, the lid will be loose and it will come right off, and then you'll know to throw that jar of food away. So I hope I was able to eliminate some of the fear of botulism, and if you do for some reason have any question about it, just make sure when you open this jar of food to boil it for 10 minutes or to bake it at 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and any botulism or any other bacteria that may have been present will be killed. Finally, I want to talk to you about how to preserve your food and what the optimal conditions are for doing that. A lot of questions people might have is, okay, well, how good is canned food edible after I've canned it? I want to read something from the USDA. It says, store high acid foods such as tomatoes and other fruits up to 18 months. So that's a year and a half. Low acid foods such as meat and vegetables for 2 to 5 years. Okay? Following that quote, I want to say that can linings might discolor or corrode when metal reacts with high acid foods such as tomatoes and pineapple. As long as the can is good and in good shape, the contents should be safe to eat, although the taste, texture, and nutritional value can diminish over time. That was from the USDA. Okay, what that tells me is things like jam, jelly, fruits, you know, any high acid food, pickles, their best by date is 18 months from the day that you can them. Low acid foods such as chilies and vegetables and any type of meat product, 2 to 5 years. A lot of times people get confused when it comes to best by dates and expiration dates. Okay, best by dates are put in place so that you know when the taste, the texture, and the nutritional value are going to start to diminish. It does not mean that your food is going to be bad once you open this jar. So please don't be put off by any fear of your best by date, because they're just trying to tell you what the optimal conditions are for consuming your food and having the most nutrition from it. Finally, I want to tell you about storage. Just make sure you store your home canned foods in a dark place that is as cool as you can get it. I usually store mine in my basement in a little pantry that we have there, and it has a great shelf life because of that, because there's no light penetrating the jar, and the conditions are cool enough for it to kind of be in a chill environment. So I hope that I was able to go over some of the basics of canning. We talked about some canning equipment that you might need. We talked about the word botulism and how you're able to prevent it. And we also talked about the optimal storage for home canned foods. Final note, I would just like to say, please pick up the Ball Blue Book of Home Canning. That's typically what everybody in the United States purchases and what they use. You're going to get specific times and specific instructions for every different type of thing that you can. So it really is the best place to get your information from. Okay, I hope this helped you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Happy canning!